It is unique in that it is a left-hand drive. God damn it. Hello, and thank you for joining me while I actually document one of my car projects. I've rebuilt my E46 M3 top to bottom, made it look as new as possible, and I didn't document a single part of it. I took a few pictures and sent it to friends, and that's about it, and I didn't want to make the same mistake with a project as unique as this. This is a 1985 BMW 635CSi Euro Spec, Alpine white on llama brown interior. Pretty unique as far as things are considered. It is a one-owner car from California, so more or less rust-free, minus a couple little spots here and there. We bought it from an auction, which we're pretty sure was an estate sale. I think maybe the original owner passed away. I'm not positive yet. We don't have the paperwork in hand. But Euro Spec, left-hand drive with a catalytic converter. This is one of 949 made over the entire lifespan of the model. One thing that immediately sets the Euro Spec apart from the US Spec is the bumpers. The US Spec bumpers stick out pretty damn far, and the Euro Specs are nice, and they keep the shark appearance of the E24 in line, which is what I love the most about this car. The US Spec bumpers add 7 inches from front to back total, and these are obviously not sticking out quite that far. Another difference with the Euro Spec, there's a lot more chrome with these. We have the chrome end cap, chrome bumpers. I think chrome trim might be unique to Euro Spec. Don't quote me on that. One negative thing about the Euro Spec is that when it's brought over to the US, they have to drill and put side markers on all 4 corners, and they don't do a very good job of it. All 4 corners look different. They're not in the same spot, they're not level, and they just look atrocious. So if and when I do body work to this, I'm hoping to have those shaved, painted, and blended. Get rid of all that. Overall, this car is in really, really good shape. Been some body work done over the years that's going to have to be fixed. Like, these stripes are supposed to be dark gray on the top and a thin black line underneath that. And I guess somebody repaired the door, and what they did was they put two thin lines up here and tried to combine them and didn't do a very good job. So it sticks out to me, but at least it's easily removed. Nice Euro Spec bumper in the rear. It could use a little bit of love, but overall it's a 35-year-old car, 36-year-old car. I can't really complain. Those damn side markers. Euro Spec comes with this different but nice wing. It's like a foam rubbery material. Pretty unique, all things considered. Despite the tiny wheels, this does have discs front and rear. So that was nice to hear that this doesn't have drums in the back, even though it has 14-inch wheels. I figured they would have to use drums, but here we are, and we're good. All the trims are in really good condition. There's no dry rotting of the leather, so all this can stay as is. I don't have to change any of it, which I'm thrilled about. All 4 windows work. Pretty happy about that. That's one electronic thing I don't have to dick with. There is a little bit of trouble here around the side. Someone used a wood screw to put in the bottom trim here. The only real piece of rust on this car is right here, and that's not too bad. It's surface only. I'm reaching back here right now, and there's nothing back here. And looks like it was in a collision, and there's a tiny bit of rust on the fender here, but not too bad. Cars these old are notorious for rusting, especially older BMWs like this, where the water gets into the seams, like around the trunk, especially. No rust here. Thank you very much, California. Got some work to do on the front. It's taken 35 years worth of hits, and it shows. There's dents here, the fog light barely holding on. Unfortunately, the two front kidneys are dented, and these are extremely expensive to replace, so I'm hoping I can just fix them. The bumper here, you can kind of tell, is pushed in and down, so I think that might be in relation to the fender more than it is to the bumper. Next thing I want to talk about is the interior of this car, but first, very satisfying opening these doors. It's so good. So this car came equipped with these sports seats, thank God. So I want to start with the back first, because I just love the way those rear seats are molded. You just fall into them. This did not come with the rear headrests, unfortunately. Those are typically unique to Euro Spec models, but this one doesn't have it. Now the front seats, all things considered, for 144,000 miles and 36 years of use, pretty good condition. There's a little bit of cracking, definitely some normal wear and tear, but nothing's actually torn in the leather itself. There's a rip in the seam right here, and it needs a good cleaning. I'm sure I can tackle most of that myself, I hope. All right, so next thing unique to the Euro Spec would be this steering wheel. The steering wheel only came on the Euro Spec cars. It was not available for US Spec models. I prefer it over the US Spec wheel. I think they both look good, but I just like the curves of this one more. I feel like it flows a little bit better and matches the car. Another thing they have to do when this car is imported is they tack on a VIN plate, which normally most VINs are up here, but with these, they just tack it on with the most easily accessible spot in front of the world's tiniest air vent, which is my favorite thing about this car, is the little bitty air vent. All right, so next thing, when this car was imported to the US, they have to change the gauges from kilometers to miles. So that's about the only thing US Spec in this, is that everything's in miles per hour. The entire interior is in German. All of my warning lights are in German. I don't speak any German, so I'm just going to be playing a guessing game for a while. And the same thing over here. All of the controls are in German. My Warnblinker, which are my hazards, my warning blinkers. I have no idea what this does. I'll have to figure that out. I don't know if it's a little computer or what. Previous owner put in a head unit that I'm not a fan of, so that'll be coming out, and I'm going to put in something that looks a little more era appropriate. So it's a 5-speed manual transmission. These cars came with the same Getrag transmission as the E30 M3, and they have brass synchros and will last a very, very long time. So I'm not sure if this was garage kept or if just was a benefit of being in a dry climate in Southern California, but there is no sagging or wear of the headliner, which I'm pretty stoked about. The front here, no issues. There's a little tiny tear on the inside of this visor, which I'm not worried about, for now anyway. The sunroof does work, I promise. It's just, I'm not turning the car on right now because the garage is shut. Yeah, overall this car is just in really, really good condition. Not everything works, but most things work. So this is the original, well, not the original, but this is the plate that they stuck on the car when it was imported. So that's the original owner, and pretty sure this car was imported in 1987, so it did spend some time in Germany. The records that we have for the car were written in German, so the owner was German. I guess he lived there for a couple years and imported it here when he moved in, or not quite sure the whole story. We were hoping to get in contact with the original owner to kind of get the background on it, but unfortunately we are pretty sure he passed away. Not confirmed yet, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened, because when we reached out to that number was no longer in service. And yeah. So next we can go over the engine in this car. This is going to be the problem point. Everything else has been pretty well taken care of. The engine, I think someone recently tried to get it running and some weird things were done, but that's fine. I'll go over it all right off the bat. I'm assuming they were chasing electrical gremlins, because there are wires everywhere. Many of them go to nothing. There are relays dangling, wires to nothing. There's a lot going on. There's relays dangling here, and this relay is warm, so we always have to store it with the battery disconnected. Otherwise, the power just drains. So we've got something here drawing power. They have little bike connectors jumping from one headlight over to the other. We have a hose here that's serving a structural purpose, holding all this together, so that's fun. Let's see, the heater was bypassed, which, I don't know, hopefully you can see that. But that's been bypassed. I'm going to have to figure out why, because despite this being a South Florida car, I would like everything to be functional, including the heat. So this is an M30 B34 motor. It has a 10-to-1 compression ratio. So the M30 B35 that the US got in the later models, that was an 8-to-1 compression ratio. This Euro Spec, 215 horsepower, whereas the US, I think, was 187 roundabout. So this does get a little bit of a power boost, not that I'll notice, because that 215 horsepower is more like 215 horsepower. We'll see how much it actually makes, especially because I'm fairly certain this car has a misfire. I've only run it about 50 feet, but I'm certain it has a misfire. Next thing on my checklist is I'm going to get the car up in the air in a couple days and just go over it, see if there's any leaks, which I'm sure there are because it's a 1980s BMW. Then check for rust under the car. I know it came from California and everything looks good on the surface, but I'd like to get it up in the air and check underneath. Just make sure everything's looking good under there. See what bushings, if not all of them, need replaced. Go over all the mounts. Check the suspension, which it's going to need to be replaced. So that's definitely on the list. I don't even need to check that. The exhaust sounds a little leaky, so I'm sure there's something screwed up down there as well. The bad thing about restoring a car this old is that some parts are just very hard to come by. This has an old alarm system that I don't actually know how it works yet. The key to turn on the alarm, here, I'll show you real quick. So it comes with a key that looks like it locks an old school chest freezer or something. And it goes down here. And I'm not sure if it's supposed to just turn to activate it, but I don't know. I have to figure that out. But looking up parts for it, they are extremely hard to come by. So I think if I have to fix something, I'm going to be on my own, possibly making my own parts or repairing existing. So we'll see about that. So my overall goals for this car are more or less just to restore it back to its original shape. I would say the only exception would be that I will change the wheels to something a little bigger, something era appropriate, but not 14 inches. I think this car could use a little bit more aggressive wheel and tire combination. Definitely when I change the suspension, I'll go with something a little lower just to fill up that wheel gap a little bit. Other than that, I'd like to keep it as original as possible. I have to chase down potentially a lot of electrical issues, but I'm just going to start with the engine first, figure out why I have a misfire, assuming that I do, which I'm pretty sure I do. Go from there. I'm very new to older engines. Everything I have is just coil packs and stuff like that. I don't have distributor caps and spark plug wires and have to worry about rotors. This is completely me out of my element with this. Everything else seems to be somewhat similar as far as BMWs are concerned, so I think I'll be okay. but just the ignition system is definitely a little weirder for me. But I'll start there and see how it goes. So something I think that's really cool about this car are the seat controls. Pretty unique. It's not something I've ever seen before. I'm sure people who are more familiar with older BMWs have, but pretty interesting, and they all work. I tested them. Headrest up and down, seat up and down, which thankfully it went up for me because when I first got in it, I could not see over the steering wheel. Front and back, so they're pretty adjustable, especially by 1985 standards. I mean, this is a 6 Series, so it was the luxury model. So it has a lot of really cool features, and I'm so far very in love with this car, and I can't wait to get cracking on it.